Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm here at Bodyworks Gym to train delts, maybe a little bit of shrugs to traps as well, but for the deltoids I'm going to show you some different techniques today. I'm going to show you some pre-exhaust techniques, supersets, and a couple of different exercises too. So see you inside. This is a proper dumbbells area, isn't it? And what I'm going to try and show you is a lateral raise with the dumbbells straight into as a superset and overhead press. If you like to train for like the feel and want higher reps, this is the one that you're really going to enjoy. This is kind of a useful exercise or superset if you're quite beginner, or if the weight that you're using isn't really progressing at the moment, but you want to test yourself in the range of resistance that you're already at. So what I'm going to do is show you how I set this up for a military press, well, you know, overhead press seated, to get the seat right, so you can just see how I adjust that if you are more beginner. If you've been training for ages, you can skip through this bit. So what I'm going to do is just wheel this in and do a lot of faffing around to make sure it's just in the right place for the bars to come down in front of my face. So the first thing that you want to look for is where the middle of the bar is, and get the seat completely in line with that perfectly, which we got there. Then it's going to be a case of setting it up. So it's going to be a normal kind of seated position like that. And then you have a few goes at testing it to see if I need to shuffle it forwards or backwards to get it in the right place so that it's not either landing on my head or too far forward. So already that feels like I need to shuffle back a bit. I will just try it just a little bit back. So without sending it left or right, you need to just kind of scoot it back like this. And try again.
Summer in the studio.
And that's perfect. That's perfect right there. So the superset is side lateral raises with the dumbbells into the overhead press. And because it's a superset, I'm not going crazy with the weight with it. I'm using the 20 kilo dumbbells and just a plate on each side here. Okay, set one.
Very much got a pool party vibe to this track. Don't forget Lovejuice holds pool parties in Dubai at Dre's. So all through the summer, that sea suit in my bag.
And then straight in.
Enjoy this track, house set from Seb. Not enough love on the week.
What I'm doing here is pre-exhausting the side deltoids to make it harder for all of that during the pressing motion. So I'm getting more out of it, hopefully, on the deltoids in that overhead pressing, where if I'd started on it normally, it would have been kind of just as easy for the delts as for the triceps and the trapezius and stuff like that. So if you like that feeling in your delts, it's one worth giving a go. But I'm going to do 4 of these supersets now and get a little bit heavier too.
Slam. The Vibe Killers boys are on it.
Now this kind of thing is easier to do if you take dumbbells over to where you're pressing, because if you do the isolation, first part of the superset with a machine, you could be, you know, 2 ends of the gym or monopolising the equipment. So I like to pick these for doing this. Set 2. And straight in, guys. As I keep saying, it's really the side delts and the rear delts that add to overall width and size in the look of the physique, and tend to be less worked because we're not hitting them with all the incline pressing and flat pressing and such like. So it's what all of my deltoids workouts focus on in an exercise like this, and when I do the isolations on their own. So set 3 now, then I'll show you something else. I like the feel of this Smith machine. Tell you what, this Gym 80 kit is some solidly made stuff, that's for sure. It's quite heavy before you even put the weights on. I've been using so much today. Anyway, I'll get my breath back and show you another pre-exhaust superset variation. Now I'm going to show you basically the same kind of superset combo with machines. So I'm going to do it on a machine lateral raise that you put the elbows under, and a machine overhead press. Luckily they're right next to each other here and it's kind of quiet, so I can get away with this, but I'd suggest something like the first combination if the gym's busy or kit's all over the place. But here's another option that we got today for that kind of pre-exhaust superset on the delts. Set 1. I like to lean forwards slightly with my butt a bit backwards and lean forwards to get more emphasis on the side delts in machines like this. Part 2 straight in. This is by Schnell apparently, not a manufacturer I see all over the place. It's a touch heavier than that. I haven't used these in ages. I'm still kind of getting a feel for what weight is required, but I think I could increase one of them. Back it. I'll go for the full stack on the press and keep it light on the raises. Yeah, this works. I'm not quite sure how full stack on the presses is going to feel, but I don't edit out any of the bad sets you see. So what you're seeing is exactly what happened in each of my workouts. Okay, part 1. I'm not going to pace myself. I am going to do this part 1 properly.
smash. Green velvet. Harness satchel.
Okay. Right, the moment of truth.
Big, big.
That's right. Guys, remember to hit the like if you think I trained hard enough. And any questions about anything at all really, pop it in the comments. And check out my other videos and subscribe. These daily videos, my proper workouts, all of bodybuilding covered in a very, very real way, I like to think. A couple of lads have just started working on the machine lateral raise, and I don't want to monopolise the kit here with my supersets, so kind of proves the point. It's quite handy actually. It proves the point that I was making earlier about this being easier and less in people's way if you use the dumbbells with some kind of overhead press rather than multiple machines. So I was right, and I'll just do my third set just as the press, because yeah, that's challenging. The worst thing is the grip. That's why I was sliding. I need to put my hands a bit narrower so they don't slide off. So we were talking about the Dorian the other day. How about this for a photo shoot? Look at that. Fantastic, isn't it? This is basically the area with all the shoulders gear, but we've done quite enough pressing and quite enough side laterals doing those two supersets. So now it's time to move on to something for rear delts. Not sure what will be free. I'm going to make it something that we haven't seen before in previous videos, so come along. We'll go bro's eye view for a bit. What I was hoping to find is cross cables where I can just hold on to the little chocks at the end of the cables rather than any handles, and do like rear delt flies with just cables. So if we make our way through, we may find, if we're lucky, a 3-cable machine. So we've got a few to choose from. Yeah, we look to be in business. As long as they're adjustable, I can get them a nice height. We're really focusing on the rear delts. See what we can do here. I haven't done this exercise for ages, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a good exercise. It's very similar to using the kind of dual chest fly and rear delt fly machine, just standing up and using cables instead. If cables is all you've got access to, you just cross your hands over if you didn't know it. Ages. I can tell that I need to go a little bit heavier than that. But these like fiddly isolations are the ones where I do sort of try not to go so heavy and try to sort of feel it. I think with any of the rear delt fly thing, I feel it most in my rear delts if I focus on trying to keep my back wide. Otherwise the kind of muscles in the mid-back and the lower trapezius and stuff are moving it by squeezing your shoulder blades together, and that's what's doing it. It's get it really on the rear delt if you try and be wide and just do it with the shoulders moving. But that's how I feel it. it might feel very different to you when you try it, or you might notice it in a different way, but that's for me. I'm just trying to get some good shots here, because I'm going to be training here a lot and I want to mix it up. We've got I kind of set it up with Dorian kind of covered up there, because we've already seen Dorian today, but you should be able to see Big Ron and Kevin Leveroni. You can make those out in the video there, and just sort of appreciate that while I take the rest for set 2. Right. Needs to be sensible now and focus, because I haven't done this exercise for ages, so it needs a bit more focus to do it properly. Hopefully this weight is a bit more appropriate. Yeah, that's better. That's better. I'm feeling it better to try and stay wide and try and stand upright now that I get back into this one. So a couple more sets on here. I'll give it another angle for you to see around the gym. So I wanted this workout to be kind of useful. If you are a bit more beginner, I want to try some different stuff without looking at the more dangerous exercises or pushing heavier weights. So feel like I've achieved that at the same time as pushing myself, because I can really feel it in my delts now. So this is a good workout for me. And if you're more beginner, let me know in the comments what muscle groups you'd like to see something similar put together for you on, and I will happily oblige. Set 3. Okay, last one here, then I'm going to go for a sit down and chat through some of the issues that have come up in your comments and a few other, nutrition stuff. Keep it balanced. That's balanced in content, not the balanced diet, My diet's a high protein diet. Drop set. Why not? Make the most of it. Oh, that was good. Yeah, it's like sometimes I literally decide while I'm training mid-set what kind of a set it's going to be and what I'm going to do. Not really a logbook guy, I mean, obviously the video is logging for me every day now, but I kind of just go with working really hard every time, looking at where I need extra work in the development and focusing on that, and using different techniques where things slow down, and more nowadays keeping the content buried as a consideration as well. And that's it. Still working. I feel like I'm in my natural habitat. I'm just surrounded by rows and rows of free weights. Like they got all the new dumbbells here, which are going up to 70s, but they've actually kind of got 3 or 4 full sets on one really long rack and 2 quite long racks all in this area, so I'm spoilt for choice when it comes to dumbbells. And I'm going to work up to those 70 kg ones on the pressing, and that's kind of that's kind of like my main strength goal I've got my eye on at the moment. That and doing 8.5 plates on a T-bar row smoothly, not like, you know, the shit reps that I got a week or two ago when I was doing that. And I've got my eye on those at the minute. But I need to get my breath back, have a sit down, and we'll talk about this nutrition stuff. And then it's like a nice evening in after getting the video out. It's Valentine's Day, isn't it? I was just thinking, how sweet would it be, like, if your girl got you a few little blue tie hearts? That'd be ideal. That'd be a good Valentine's Day present for a bodybuilder. Some little blue hearts from Thailand. Silly jokes. Let's get out of here. Okay, thanks for watching the workout. I'll just check the microphones are good. Yep, good. Thanks for watching the workout there. Now we can discuss a few matters that were outstanding on nutrition. Because I did have a few comments to catch up on, and I wrapped it up last night after that trip to Peterborough. That was a bit of a long road trip, doing that away game gym tour. So I picked some of the shorter comments that needed picking up on. But the other outstanding one, I'll get to the point, is from Willie Andrews. Thanks for your comment. He says, "Hi Sam, huge fan of you and your approach. Excited to be on the ground floor of a channel that I believe will grow massively." Well, yeah, I hope so too. Based on the information, do you recommend low or zero carb for cutting? So this was in response to the BS calorie theory video, the little controversial one there, where I talked about the calories in, calories out and energy balance paradigm, and kind of took it to pieces in a little bit of a rant. So that was about 2 weeks ago, nearly 2 weeks ago anyway. He says, "It seems that you've brought to light insulin spikes, shut down body fat oxidation. Andrew Huberman of the Lab podcast also mentioned this process occurs in one of his episodes. I saw one of your responses saying that you cycle low or zero carb depending on your training needs during a cut. Do you still consider overall calories once low or zero carb, or has been established while cutting? In other words, do you still modify calories of your protein and fats to reduce body fat once carbs are low or non-existent?" These are really good questions, so I'm going to pick this whole thing apart. This is why I wanted to treat this one separately, because there's multiple questions within the question, and I hope to shed some light on all of it, and you know, give good advice for people that are doing the cutting now, as opposed to, you know, me increasing weight. I imagine there's an upper limit of how much protein and fat could be consumed before weight is no longer being lost, even though there are little to no carbs. So I've seen this trying a zero carb carnivore where I ate a lot of protein and fat with no carbs and still gained body fat. Thanks for you, this is awesome. Yeah, okay, look, thank you so much for the detailed engagement. It really makes it worth my while to do the proper explanations and really treat all of these topics seriously, that there's people that appreciate it. So yeah, if you're here for the real stuff and you're engaging with the real stuff, this is exactly why I'm here. So thank you for your comment, and I'll start at the end, because I think I would be skeptical that you were on zero carb or no carbs, because unless you're eating nothing but red meat, I mean literally beef only, the strictest version of the carnivore diet, there will be some carbohydrates sneaking in there somewhere. So not a lot of people, when we talk about carbs, like in the colloquial sense, we're talking about like certain types of foods like root vegetables and grains and stuff like that, and we call all of that carbs, but we wouldn't call, like, you know, an apple like carbs, even though it does have carbohydrate in it, for example. So there's like the colloquial use of the word. So a lot of bodybuilders, when they say they ain't no carbs, what it means is that they were eating rice before and now they cut it out for a week or two, or potatoes, what have you, but they were still eating carbohydrates that were in much lesser amounts, but still there in other foods. So let's take some examples. Not a lot of people know this, but an egg contains about 0.5 gram of carbohydrates. You thought it was zero carb, it was not quite, not technically. Also, fish can have, you know, between 0.5 and 1 per however many grams, trace amounts basically. So even all these meats, except for red meat, do have traces of carbohydrate in them. And yeah, that surprised me too when I learnt it. And then of course all of the non-starchy vegetables that we don't refer to as carbs, they have trace amounts of carbs as well. So, you know, onion, mushroom, broccoli, like all these things that people put in a low carb diet that work very well, they're not strictly, you know, no carbs. They're mostly water, they're a little bit protein, they're a little bit carbohydrate as well. So I would kind of put that question back to you and say, did you eat nothing but red meat, or did you eat a spectrum of things, and did you eat certain cheeses where there will be some carbohydrates? Did you eat certain meat products where there would be certain carbohydrates? Did you have certain vegetables with it? That would be part one of my, you know, follow-up question to that question. And part two would also be, how long did you do it for? Because when someone's gained weight for a long time and they're trying to lose weight, they're usually like in a state of what they call insulin resistance. So as the body is getting flooded with the same signal from insulin constantly being secreted because they're having carbohydrates in many meals, it needs a louder and louder signal to react to the insulin, so they end up with more and more insulin being secreted, and then it needs a long period, like off the carbs, to regain what they call insulin sensitivity, where they're not, you know, secreting so much insulin to a certain amount of carbs. So this is like things that happen, that change, like on the route to kind of being type 2 diabetic. So you know, it's not straightforward. You need to get into a state where you're zero carb until you start losing the weight. And usually what happens is within a week or two of doing that, your appetite completely changes. The hormones like ghrelin and such like will adapt to the different diet that you're having and the different nutrients that you're having, and you won't eat so much without feeling hungry, very naturally. And then your body will change in its, you know, insulin sensitivity, but it's not operating the same like after a period of doing this. So you have to give it long enough for your appetite to go down. You have to give it long enough to regain insulin sensitivity, and then you need to observe the weight loss, and then you need to be very careful with the amount of carbs that you put back in, that you don't basically reverse the process. So someone like, you know, Atkins was so ahead of his time when he wrote his book Diet Revolution. If you read Diet Revolution now, or the updated version called The New Diet Revolution, he put this kind of like low carb weight loss program into 4 phases, and he calls phase 1 induction, where he basically wants you, you know, as close to zero carbs as possible, if not zero carb. And you have to do that until you reach a point where you are are losing weight, and your appetite is regulated to a situation where you are losing weight. That relates to one of your other questions, so we'll come on to that. And then once that's clicked in, phase 2, if I remember rightly, is called continued weight loss, and that's basically reintroducing trace carbs just to make it more manageable to have more varied meals. So that's where things like, you know, tomatoes and mushrooms and such like, you know, non-starchy plant products are permissible. And then he, you know, takes you through stage 3 and 4, and they're basically kind of the same thing, where it's less of a hardcore zero carb approach, but it's carbohydrate control while observing like results. And this is about changing how your body works, and very ahead of his time. Like we'll catch up eventually. A lot of people that were really into that just ended up eating meat, and now we have like carnivore, obviously. So let's come to your other questions, like, do I recommend low or zero carb for cutting? Yes, absolutely. Does it work? Yes. Does it work? And is it proven to work better by the studies? yes. If you want to interrogate that yourself, there's a website called phcuk.org. That's the public health collaboration, and in their research section of the website, you can look at their analyses of all the different studies that compare low carb diets and low calorie diets, and find the low carb ones more successful. So, if you like the studies, that's a signpost to the better analysis of the research that's out there that I've seen. But in my own experience as well, it was the only way of dieting that doesn't involve you going hungry, because being hungry is awful. When we talked in that video before about the the Minnesota starvation study, and how Ansel Keys had observed that these subjects were really miserable, and that is typical of people when they're dieting, and even more so bodybuilders and physique athletes and contest prep. And it's just totally not necessary. It's not nice. Your body. Well, I guess what I'm saying is your body doesn't. Energy. Okay. Energy is even though I've said energy is not a thing it's not a substance, I do believe in the concept of energy, and I do believe that the body requires energy to run. I just don't believe that it's a physical thing. It's a paradigm and a process, and we're still doing things to understand that. But the things that we're doing to understand all of these things are confounded by the money interests in certain results and certain education. So we're not getting too far forward. But I do believe that the things that the body requires from any diet is the nutrients. Macronutrients and the micronutrients. It has all of the nutrients that it needs. So it actually doesn't need carbohydrates. So you could say, that carbohydrate isn't a macronutrient, because the body can function perfectly well without it. And the other thing that it needs is energy. So you definitely need the energy to gain muscle. That's why eating more is really important, and you can definitely include carbohydrates when you're doing the bulking or the building muscle side of bodybuilding. It's useful to have carbohydrates because it's easy to eat more of them, and you do need to eat more to get the energy to do the extra building, which was, in addition to all the things that your body needed energy to do anyway. So I sort of believe, you could say that I believe in a calorie surpluses for bulking, for bodybuilding bulking. And I also believe that, the place for carbohydrates and bulking is also to do with insulin, because insulin is a highly anabolic hormone, and it, as well as giving the signal to the fat cells to store, is giving the signals to the muscle to store and build as well, and take in amino acids and glycogen. So, you want insulin happening at least sometimes when you're trying to build muscles. So carbohydrates help there, and carbohydrates are necessary there when there's even more insulin for whatever reason. And that's bodybuilding, that's the bulking side. So you do need energy from it, so you do need calorie surpluses for building. But I guess the bit that's in the calories in, calories out, and energy, the whole energy paradigm more broadly, you could say, my problem with it is that I don't believe that when you create a calorie deficit and don't give your body the energy that it does need to do what it wants to do, I don't believe that you get repaid for that in fat loss. It doesn't just switch over to losing fat. It just thinks that there's a problem and a food scarcity and an emergency, and it shuts down how much energy it's trying to use. So it just makes you more tired and lose your libido and not grow so well, and your skin and your hair not repair so well, and it just kind of makes everything work worse, because it's trying to conserve energy because you're not providing energy. That's what I believe happens when you create a calorie deficit. So you could say I'm basically anti-calorie deficits, so I don't believe that well, it's not even about belief. The evidence seems to suggest at this point that creating these calorie deficits doesn't, pay you off with the pound of fat loss for every 3,500 calories of deficit that you create over whatever period of time. There's nothing that proves that. I'd love someone to prove me wrong. If you can prove me that every 3,500 calorie deficit that you create results in a pound of fat loss continually, permanently, then I'll change my mind. But there's nothing that suggests that, and that's why people keep rebounding in weight when they do these low calorie diets and stuff like that. So yeah, so the next part of your series of questions is basically kind of asking, do you need a calorie deficit as well as a lack of carbohydrates and insulin to create fat loss? And I would say no, but here's how I analyse it. It's all about the timings, you see, because a calorie deficit is always calculated in response to like a period of time. So like when we figure someone's like metabolic rate and like their maintenance calories, we're always doing it per what they theoretically need, or we think we can work out they theoretically need per 24 hours. But you're not eating you're not shuttling food through the system at the same rate, like through that 24-hour cycle, are you? You're not. You're having single, individual, separate, discrete meals, aren't you? So the way I see it is that if you kind of overall don't try and starve yourself, it's the periods between the meals that your body's perfectly capable to use its own reserve stores for energy. Whether there was an overall, theoretical calorie surplus or not over the 24-hour period or not, because it's getting along just fine. So you're losing the most weight and fat like overnight when you're not eating in the fasted period. So I'd say it's about these timings and that sort of thing, and how the surpluses and deficits are always calculated to a 24-hour cycle, but that's not actually how we behave, and we sleep and we have separate meals. And so, we do know that the body's using energy, or using more energy, just for its own processes and non-deliberate exercise energy expenditure, and so much of that is happening overnight, and you're not eating overnight. That when I kind of push for fat loss, what I do is I get into zero carb, or very close to zero carb, and then I kind of truncate the meals together. So when I'm bulking, it's 5 or 6 meals a day. When I'm cutting, it's 4 meals a day, but there's kind of 12 or 13 hours between like meal 4 of the previous day and meal 1 of the next day. And when I wake up in the morning, there's some fat loss, supersets as well, that get things going, and a bit of cardio there, and that's how I chip away at it. And that whole process, that whole setup doesn't ever involve me going hungry, and I feel great. So I hope it's a lot of waffle there. It's maybe not for everyone that jumps straight into this video, but I hope that answers all of your questions. I'm just going to skim read your message again to see that I've addressed everything that you've said there. Yeah, I believe I've covered it all, but look, this sort of thing is what I'm most interested in, so we'll be returning to this topic one way or another lots of times, so we'll just keep the conversation going. And if anyone's got anything to say about low carb diets, jump straight in, because it's one of my favourite topics, and I did quite a lot of reading in that particular area, and there'll be some more book reviews on that kind of thing. But that's the overview there. So I've caught up on all of the detailed, serious questions now, and I think if you've made it this far, you're part of my core audience, so thank you. And I'll just level with you and say I've basically been a little bit ill the last few days, and that's why I thought I can produce quality content today if I just show what a beginner workout would be, and not smash it with the heavy weights like I was doing on that Peterborough trip yesterday. But that was actually a really good workout for me too. My delts are fried, like really good. So if you like a workout where you want that pump and that feeling like right where you intended it afterwards, I'd really recommend that one. It felt great for me, and I think it's something that's safe and enjoyable for a beginner to approach more than certain exercises. So I hope you found that helpful there. I need to get back now. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back online tomorrow. Cheers.